Hey everybody, welcome to Cousin Jack Carves. Today we're going to be finishing up our little gnome lady project by putting in all these details that we started off with a roughed out shape, right? So now we're ready to get that done. And the first thing we'll do in order to make that happen is make some marks for the face, where the chin will be, and how to get that face looking the way we want it to. So grab the ruler and the pencil here. All right, so we have our roughed out shape. All we're going to do right now is measure from the bottom of the nose. Actually, before we do the bottom of the nose, we'll measure out from side to side. So we still have that center line marked at the center of our nose. What we're going to do is measure out 1/2 inch. It's about 13 mils. 1/2 inch to each side, and just make a mark. So you've got one here and right here, okay? Then we'll measure down from the bottom of the nose. We'll go down 3/8. That's about 9 millimeters. And we'll make a mark at the center. So we'll go to right there. Get that on the bottom of the nose. We'll go 1, 2, 3/8. Make ourselves a mark there. All we're going to do now, this is going to be where the chin will be located. All we're going to do now is connect the dots here. We're going to take and make a semicircle just like that. Same thing on this side. And there you go. That's how we get the shape for our face, just like that. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and put in that smile. Now, some of these lines we will be carving off and then redrawing. So now that I think about it, we'll wait. We'll put the smile in later. Let's talk a little bit about the hair. So on the front of our carving, and you can see on this example, we're going to put in these two hair ends right here. To do that, we're going to go down to the base and mark in towards the center, from the outside towards the center. We're going to mark 1/8 of an inch. It's about 3 millimeters, okay? So we'll get to the far outside edge, come in 1/8 here. Far outside edge of this side, come in 1/8. Again, about 3 millimeters, just like that. We're making a mark here at the base. Now, the next thing we're going to do is from that mark, we're going to mark 1/4 inch further in towards the center line. So that's about 6 mils, okay? So we're gonna line it up, that mark we just made, and come on in 1/4 inch or 6 mils. We'll do the same thing on this side over here. Come in about 1/4 inch, 6 mils. So what that will be this very base of these hair ends. That's what that will be. All right, so the next measurement we want to do now is measure up about 1/4 of an inch from the base in the, so let's say the middle of the marks that we have here. Come on up 1/4 inch. Again, 6 millimeters. And make a mark. We'll do the same thing over here on this side. Find our middle is about there. And measure up 1/4 inch, make a mark. Now that's going to be where the hair end meets the hair ties, right? See these little hair ties that we have here? So what we're going to do is just make a little bubble, a little oval shaped bubble like this, okay? Same thing over here. That's going to be the hair tie. And then we're going to angle these lines going up to it. It's just like that. And there we go. So we've gotten started on putting that hair in place. So as far as the back of the hair, or I should say maybe the side, okay? So one of the things that we talked about when we were carving at the beginning of this project was kind of marking that center line and then carrying that over onto the hat, like we have it right here. And although it's not on this hat, I'm going to say it's right there. Precise measurement. So to get this hair on the side sort of measured out, what we want to do is from that center mark, we're going to measure towards the back 1/4 inch, right? And make a mark right there. So there's that mark. Next thing we'll do is from that center line that we have, we're going to measure down. And this time we'll go down 1/2 inch. That's about 13 mils, okay? So we'll come down 1/2 inch, make a mark. What we're going to do here is just, again, kind of connect the lines. So we're going to make this semicircle right here. Just coming down like this. You do want to draw it larger than maybe what you're going to need because you're going to be removing some of that material. From here, we've got this shape, right? We've got this shape. We're going to draw braids and sort of connect everything together. So what I have found, and this is something that I really I think is helpful, and hopefully you'll find it as helpful as I did. I found that in order to be able to carve braids, I needed to learn how to draw them. And this is what I learned. So, well, first of all, let me show you what I would do. Sometimes I would, you know, put in the hair like this, and I tried just making X's, you know. No, that didn't work. That was not it. So I tried another thing. I said, well, maybe if I just make these sort of blobs of hair. And that didn't work either. So then I found a really simple method that, hey, actually looks like a braid, okay? So what we want with our braid is we want it to taper, right? As it gets down. Here's our bubble that we have for the hair tie. And, you know, your hair end's going to be here, right? Okay. The easiest way to draw braids is to do a zigzag line down the center, like this. Now, as we go, as this tapers, our zigzag line is going to get shorter, right? Shorter, smaller. Like that. Next step, we extend those lines. Let me show you what I mean there. So we take this line that we have here, we extend it, just like that. We take this line, extend it this way. So I can come over here and do all these on this side, right? And then over here. This is how we get braids. Now, in order to make them look even better, what we do after we get these carved, we have our lines and stop cuts, we start rounding, taking these corners off here, like this. And voila, that's how we make braids. It's really pretty simple. once you know this very simple method. Hope that helps you. Okay, what I want to do, you can see here on this example, I have this back part of the hair. It sort of meets up here with the braid, and this just kind of connects to the side of the face. And what I also want to do is kind of give it a little curve. See how that curves right there? That braid kind of curves. I'd like to do that too. So all we're going to do is come up here to the side of our face that we put in. We're going to start curving a line just like that. All right? And then we're going to take that and start tapering out. See how that goes up and starts to widen? And then we just kind of connect this right here. Just like that. Okay? And we would do the same thing over here, right? We come down off of the face, try and get some curve into it, just a little. Doesn't have to be a lot of curvature. And just gonna pencil in. Same thing, we're gonna make that broader as it goes up. And there we are. All right, so I think we have enough markings to go ahead and start carving. Start removing some material. So let's put a stop cut near the top of the nose, where the top of the nose meets the hat brim. Right up there, okay? And then we'll just take out a small little sliver. We don't want to remove too much material off the top of that nose. We just want to have a shadow there, really, more than anything. We do want to do a little rounding here. We have a rectangular nose, and we want to have a rounded one, kind of an oval shape. So take off some corners. So I want to say a big hello to all of the folks in the carving class out there in Hutchinson, Kansas. Harold Dryden, thank you, Harold, for letting me know, is providing some instruction to a group of carvers out there in Kansas, and understand some of them are working on this project. So I'm really happy to hear that. You know, the whole idea and the goal here with these projects is for beginners to experience some success, right? Build some confidence, and of course, build some skills at the same time. And most of all, have fun, right? That's the primary goal. So I'm just rounding here. Removing some pencil marks as well. If you wanted to, of course, you could use a detail knife for this part of the project. And nothing wrong with that. Most important thing, make sure you have a sharp knife. All right, so just make a few more cuts on the rounding here. I think you have the general idea. All right, so we've got that nose a little more round than what it was earlier. Now what we want to do is start putting in some stop cuts for this face and the hair. All we're going to do really is, like I said, stop cuts. We're just going to outline the shapes at this point. All right, so we can start removing material around them. So for that, I'm just going to come up here and follow that line that I have for the face. Again, just kind of making an outline. All right, now same thing, just going to follow the line that we have for the hair. Just really coming next to it, okay? Same thing over here. Like that. And we'll do the same on the outside of that braid right there. And then follow that along right here on the side. There we go. And we'll do the same over here. All right, so we have that sort of outlined. Now we can start removing some material here. What we want to do is kind of have a little bit of a rounded shape here so that the middle is higher than the outsides. And you can see very quickly here we have a couple of triangle opportunities. There's one right here. And what we're going to be doing here is bringing out some of that chin and the face because we're getting some depth here, right? We'll also be bringing out the braids at the same time. Another triangle right here. Okay. Again, removing material where we outlined the braids and so I could bring out, get some depth, bring out these shapes. To say carving like this so far away from my body is a real challenge, folks. Don't recommend it, but for the sake of video I think it gives you the best look at what we're doing. So we'll sacrifice a little bit here for the good of everyone. Okay, keep removing this material. And before you know it, you've got a face starting to emerge there, right? You might be saying, okay, Jack, well, how much depth do we need, right? Let's look at some examples. Right, so Here on this example, I'm going to say that the chin is about 1/8 of depth. And it's good to have the same thing for the braids, about 1/8 of an inch, 3 millimeters, okay? I think that's a good target. You can go deeper than that if you want to. Not a problem. I think what I find with most beginner carvers is that they don't go deep enough. There's just not a lot of depth to some of their carvings. And I was the same way. I could show you some of my early carvings. It looks like I put a scratch on the surface, you know. Not a lot of depth there. But we want that depth. We want to make shadows. We want to make shapes and shadows. So I'm thinking that we've got the depth we want right here. Do a little cleanup real quick. So what we'll do now is move over onto the side. Same thing, we want to remove material and get some depth to bring out this hair, okay? And we have our stop cuts already in place. So I want to share something with you. So on the base here, we're not really trying to remove material from the side in. We're trying to take the front back. Example right here, okay? So we want to keep that width, but we do want to push the front back so we can bring out that braid. I hope that makes sense for you, okay? So to do that, I'm not coming in from the side, removing the material here, and bringing my knife here at the front and bringing it up this way. All right? So I'm not losing my width, I'm creating depth. All right. So what I want to do today as well, I've shown you a couple of different examples of these little gnome women, and a lot of folks said they would like to see me demonstrate that leaf hat, and I will. I'll do that. I'll do both, and that's the plan. I want to show you the simple hat and a little more difficult but very attractive, of course, leaf hat, okay? And I think we have good depth here. I'll move over to the other side, do the same thing. All right, so what you'll want to do is look at your carving from the back. Let's see if you have the same depth for that hair on both sides. I'm pretty happy with it. I do want to take away some material right here. Okay. So for the next step, what we want to do is start rounding this face and the hair shapes. Okay, and I can give you a little peek at this one. You see that face, it's rounded as it goes out to the sides like this, okay? And we want to have that shape. And of course we want to take the sharp edges off the hair and what have you. So with the face, where it meets the hair right here, what we want to do is just kind of tuck that face behind the hair. So we're taking some material from the sides of the face, rounding out from the center, like this. Rounding the edges. Same thing over here. Just kind of rounding. And then where the hair meets the face, same thing, just going to remove material from the face like that, right? We already had a stop cut there. And now we're just bringing that material down a little further. This helps the shape look a little more rounded. We don't want our face to be too flat, right? Generally speaking, yes, these are caricatures, and they are relatively flat compared to a real human face, but we have an opportunity to create a shape here and give it some roundness here. So that's what we're working on. Okay, with the hair, again, taking off the sharp edges. Just a little sliver there, folks. This is a small carving, right? We don't want to take off the whole braid. We just want to round the edges. Okay. Doing the same thing here, removing pencil marks, rounding the shape. And we'll do the same thing here, sort of taking off the sharp corner. Okie dokie, I think we are ready to draw that braid in and go ahead and carve it. Just like we did with the example drawing on the whiteboard, we're just going to put in our line for that zigzag. So we'll start up here at the top of the braid and start that zigzag line. And as we go, the length of the zigzag line gets shorter. All right, so we bring that down to where we have our hair tie, right? Now we're going to do the same thing we did with the example drawing. Extend these lines. Right? And extend these lines. Okay, so we've got the braid part drawn. Now what we want to do is include some additional lines to give the hair some detail. And we start by bringing these lines off of the face. We're just going to come down like this. Just like that. And we're going to have a few lines like this. Just have fun with it. Make a few lines. And there you are. Let's go ahead and carve that braid. So the first thing I want to do is put in my stop cuts for this hair tie. So I'm just going to put a stop cut across the top of the hair tie and one across the bottom edge of that hair tie. Next, I want to make stop cuts where my pencil lines are to create the braid lines. You see that wants to chip out right there. We'll let it go. So the same thing on this side. We want to extend those lines with a stop cut. Put in some lines here leading up to the face. They have a little curve to them. And we'll go ahead and put in stop cuts for these other marks that we made. And one right here. This is another place where you may want to use the detail knife for carving these little small braids. You can see this has a very, very thin blade on it, right? Kind of what we want when we're working in really small spaces like this. At the base, I'm just going to create that angle, right, so that the hair is sort of angling into where the hair tie is. Same thing on this side, angle, just like that. And remove that little chunk. And I want to undercut a stop cut for the hair tie. And also from the top. And then take out little slivers of wood here where we have put in these stop cuts earlier to create our braids. Now, let me just say, there are different ways you could do this, all right? I have this project earmarked as a knife-only project. And yes, you can do it with only a knife. That's what I've done. And that's what we're doing today. However, you could very easily make these braids with a wood burner if you wanted to. You could also make these braids with a V-tool if you wanted to. Or you could use your knife. And I suppose if you really had the desire, you could make the braids with just paint, right? You could use a liner brush, just paint in all these lines. For those of you who are learning how to whittle and how to wood carve, this is an excellent way to learn how to control your blade. That's what this takes. It takes some ability to control that blade. All right, so come to this part now where this line comes off of the face. So what I want to do is come in here and just undercut that. Give it a nice big shadow. Same thing with this line coming off the face. Get in under it. Slice up to it. And you can see how that looks, right? Now right here, I want to tuck that hair in under that hat. To do it, I'm just going to come here with my knife and curl it under. Just like that. Why don't we go ahead and carve the rest of these lines that we made. And these are really fairly simple. We're just kind of making some V-cuts, creating some shadows here to represent how the hair would flow. It's not highly detailed, but you could always make it more detailed if you wanted to. Wrap up this side. I am going to save the carving of the other braid for later. In the interest of time, I want to show you how to carve the braid. And you've seen me do it on this one. You can certainly do it on the other one. And I wanted to save time to show you both hats. And of course, we're going to put in the mouth and everything. We also want to add a neckline. It's so interesting because, just having this little neckline here, it's a very small detail. It doesn't take long to do it, but it really adds to just the look. So we'll do that as well. First thing, is we have to make some marks for this smile. So all we're going to do is think about where that center of the nose is, probably about here, right? Give or take. And what we want to do is come between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin, come about halfway down, just make a mark right there on the center. Next, what we want to do is come up to where the bottom of the nose lands. Come on out about halfway between that nose and where the edge of the face is. Make a mark. Same thing over here. About halfway between the bottom of the nose and where the hair is. Make a mark there. All we do next is connect the dots, and she'll be smiling. And you can get, creative with the smile. You can make it lopsided to one side if you want, or, you can do all kinds of things. All right, so what I want to do at the top here is just create a little curved line like that. Do the same thing over here. Give it a little curved line. All right, so in order to carve that, what I like to do is just kind of put my knife in and then follow the line like so. Now you want to be careful when you're doing this, and control the blade again. All right, so we've got that stop cut in place. Now where we have these little curved lines, the way I like to do that is, again, put the tip of the knife in and sort of curve it around, following that line. Like that. Do the same thing on this side. Tip of the knife goes in, and just a little curve, like that. So then I'm going to come underneath this stop cut and just take out a little sliver of wood to get us started here. Creating shadows, right? Now for these corners up here, it's like a little triangle. I've got this stop cut here. Come in and cut like this. And then from this side, like that. And slowly but surely we'll get that material to pop out. All right, we'll do the same thing over here. And what I like to do is come along that top lip and just sort of take off the sharp edge. Round that over a little bit. Removing the pencil mark as well. We've got some pencil marks here. Take that mark off the nose where I made that. there's some pencil marks on this side as well. It's a little tough to get in here with this knife, but like I said, you might want to use a detail knife. So we have rounded the nose, we've created the face, put in the smile, we've carved the braid here. What we'll do next is that neckline. So you have some options here, right? You could do no neckline at all. You could just make sure that you have the dress going all the way up to the face. You could do a V-shaped neckline like this one, or you could do that crew neck shape like this one. So for this example, let's go ahead and do this crew neck. It's just a really simple line, about 1/8 of an inch, right? About 3 millimeters below where the face is, just kind of mirroring the shape of the face, just like this. Like I said, it's a really small and simple detail. It doesn't take long, but really adds to the look. Let's go ahead and put in the stop cut where we have our pencil line. And then we're just going to remove that material. Doesn't have to be very deep either. We're just going to take enough material to create that shadow that we're looking for. Let's switch knives here. So the concept, of course, is that the material of the dress will be at a higher level than her neck, right? So that's all we're doing, is creating that effect. Make sure we get our pencil marks off of here. So there we go. Pretty quick, pretty easy little neckline. And now let's talk about hats. As I mentioned, I want to show you both hats. And so we'll start with the simple hat. That's this one right here. All right, and you can see that this shape has been kind of curled quite a bit here. So to do that, all we're really going to do, and first of all, let's talk about this. Why do we save the hat for last? Well, if you're like me, I tend to put my thumb on that brim of the hat. And if I have thinned that out already, very likely to just snap it right off. And so save the hat for last. And that's why. So just gonna curl that blade. See that? And we're going to be moving around the piece, doing the same thing. Bringing out that brim and accentuating that some more. Come over here in this corner. Give it a good twist. Okay, we went all the way around there. Let's look at our example again. So we've got that top already sort of shaped there. And to do that, you just come up here and twist that knife, curl it, right? Just like that. I think what we want to do is put in a couple of more accent lines. So we'll do one like this, and maybe one that's like that. Same thing on the back side, right? Just give it a little oomph, a little character. And then we'll just add some more folds and wrinkles wherever we want. All right. So looking at this hat, I think I'd like to kind of bend this part in some more. Put in that mark where we penciled right here. Another one like this. Again, we're just looking for some shadows here, right? Okay. All right, so why don't we go ahead and give it a notch right here. So another thing you could do with these hats, if you wanted to, you could just put a hat band on there, right? I'm going to come right above that notch that we just put in there and just curl my knife. Yeah, sort of creates a little layer, right? Do the same thing here. Just kind of put one in and bring it up on the back, like that. Here we go. Again, I'm going to come up above there and curl my knife, remove material away from that edge. Some of this wood grain wants to go the other direction. And as I shared with you in part one, sometimes if you slice across the grain, that can help to clean up some of those marks where the wood wanted to split out. Okay? All right, so I think you have the general idea of the simple hat, right? Let's talk about the leaf hat. And I can tell you that the leaf hat is really simpler than it looks. All this is 4 leaves on the bottom with 4 leaves on top. Here's the top view. you can see there's one big leaf for each corner. And above that, we just have 4 leaves that are sort of tied together at the top, and I put in a sort of a, I don't know, I guess that'd be a piece of vine or something. I don't know what a gnome would use for a hair tie, but there you go. And so we have these 4 large leaves and 4 smaller leaves. What we want to do is carve from the outside in. By that, I mean from the top layer, whatever's furthest out, and then carve in. And to do that, we want to start with the smaller leaves that are on top and carve down to these larger leaves that are underneath the smaller leaves. All right, so what I'm going to need to do on this example is make that top significantly smaller. And so I'll be sort of bringing that in from the front and the back, right? And then I'll put a tie across here. This is where the stems would kind of come together. And we want to have our shaping in place before we draw the leaves. And just like we did on that first hat, we will be removing material down here and scooping our knife to create some angles for the large leaves that we will have on each corner. All right, so we'll just start by shaping this top. All right, so I'm just gonna draw in a line here where I would want to sort of create that vine. And when you're working on the end grain, this is somewhat of a challenge, right? So you're really just making some stop cuts here. And relieving the material around those cuts to create the shape of a hair tie of sorts. do want to be patient with this end grain. It's really easy to have it break on you. Taking off pencil marks right now. Okay, so we've got that in place. Just like earlier, we want to come over here on our edge and start rolling that knife, right? Curl that blade and create some space for these leaves, especially the large leaves that are going to be on each corner. Yeah, that wants to split. Now, what we want with these leaves, we want them to be supple, right? We want them to be able to have contours and shape. You can see here on this one, for example, when it comes out to the corner, it actually drops off. It sort of bends down at the tip. So does this one, like that. And to do that, we have to come onto that corner and take off a little bit from the corner. See that? In order to get that downward movement. We can do the same thing on the front corner. Don't want to take too much now because we need the material. This will help us get a little bit of a downward slope. Okay, so I think the next thing we should do is just work on shaping the top of the hat. So all I'm going to do here is come on up, start contouring around the top. Again, curling that knife. So let's go ahead and draw some leaves. And we'll do something similar to this one. So if I think about, this will be a group of stems up here, right? All tied together. I'll have a leaf coming out of there. Like this. And then I'll bring another one over here. Now you could have as many leaves as you want, right? Make it yours. Design it the way you want it. I tend to have them very often tucked under one another. And I'll just, I've got room, I'll go ahead and add one more here. Just like that. On the bottom, where we have the larger leaves, you can see they're kind of split about halfway across the side or across the front. In this case, what I'll do is bring a line this way for this leaf over here. And this one will be kind of tucked under it, coming out this way. I don't want to remove too much material above that nose. I want to keep that. You can see how I've done this one, right? And on the side, again, just kind of bring the line out this way. And that way. And that's really all there is to that. So like I said, we would carve this from the outside in. So starting with the smaller leaves that are on the top, right? Come up here and make stop cuts to outline where we have our pencil marks. And it's important to remember which ones are tucked under which, okay? So just making our stop cuts for the smaller leaves first. And I've gone all the way around and made those stock cuts. Next, it's all a matter of just removing material and bringing those leaves out. So as you're going along and you're working on this, you just got to remember which one is tucked under which one, okay? It gets really confusing sometimes. So you want to keep track of that. So you can know when you're carving from the outside in, which one is further outside than the other. So we've got ourselves a pretty good start here on just bringing out these shapes. And I want you to see look at how this shape flows here. It comes up and then it kind of comes over this way. I really like it. Yeah. And we're going to enhance that now. So what I want to do is start working on these little leaves, and I'm gonna switch to my other knife because it curls better, right, than a regular old utility knife blade. So curling, like that, shaping these leaves so that they have this sort of a contour and some suppleness that makes it look like a leaf. And as you're doing this, you might find that you're removing some of your depth. That's fine. Just go back and give it some more depth. Don't worry about the big leaves yet. Same thing on this one. Curling that knife. Just here and there. Giving it a shape that's not just this flat looking lifeless leaf. We want it to look soft, right? Same thing. We're just going to work our way around here. Curling our knife, giving these leaves some flow. And like we talked about earlier, you want that depth, right? Make those shadows, make those shapes, create that depth. Okay, so let's redraw some of our lines for the big leaves, because some of them came off in the process, but you can see where they were. I'm gonna put it back in like this, like that. And like we did with the smaller leaves, we will start by putting some stop cuts in place. All right, so what we'll do is decide which leaf is on top of the other one. For this one, I want to tuck this leaf under it. Like this. Alrighty, so we've got those in place. And what we would do with these large leaves is kind of like what we did with the smaller ones. You know, you get in here and curl your blade, create some shapes, right? Shapes and shadows. Get rid of everything that doesn't look like a leaf. All right, let's talk about getting to your finished leaf hat. So you can see that I added details for all the veins on these leaves. First I drew them with a pencil, then I used a wood burner. You could do a number of different things. You could carve those veins in with a knife. You could use a V-tool. You could use a wood burner. You could even just paint them on. One of the things that I did with my leaves. In nature, I guess there's a couple of different patterns that show up with leaves. So we have that main primary vein down the center, right? And in nature, I guess you'll find that there are leaves that will come off with veins just like this, where they are symmetrical in terms of where they come off of this main line. And then you have some that are alternating. And what I mean by that is they come off staggered, not coming off the main line at the same point, right? They stagger. And this is what I did. I used this sort of an approach. And what I like to do is bring my lines out, curl them, you know, give them some flow. That's what I did, and I think, like I said, there are a number of ways that you could put in those lines. Well, folks, I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up down below. That really is important for me. It helps other carvers see the video, okay? Thanks again. We'll see you next time.